Welcome back. So in this module we're going to go over some popular fantasy type effects that I've used many times, and the techniques can obviously be applied to many different things, but you can create a base on these effects and further build on them fairly easily. So the first effect we're going to create is a type of disintegration effect that can be applied to many different things, and the technique is really useful and it's really fast. So what we're going to start off with here is creating some text. So let's just go and make sure our text is loaded in the plugin manager. And if we scroll down, we want to make sure type is loaded. So now, if we go to our polygons tab here, let's just click on the text logo, and this will create some 3D text. So what is 3D text? I just want to make sure the topology is good all around and we've got enough definition for our shattering. So we want a certain amount of faces so we can get a good tear or disintegration going. So let's just call this title, and we can pick a different font, maybe something a little bit more interesting. Here we go. And now let's just go into the geometry settings. So under mesh settings, let's go into deformable type and let's select this, and this is going to add faces to the front of our geometry here. And so also let's go into max edge length and let's just lower this until we get a definition that we like, to increase the resolution a little bit, maybe something like 1. And you can see that we're adding a little bit more faces here. So that's fairly good. Now let's go in and let's just bevel the edges. So let's go into bevels and outer bevel, and let's enable the outer bevel. And now if we look at the edges here, let's just bring those in a little bit, maybe reduce the divisions, and we can kind of push them in a little bit to round the edges. Cool. So now let's just go in and we're going to convert these to triangles. Let's go to mesh and triangulate. So now we've got all triangles. I'm going to go in and smooth this once as well to make sure that we've got enough faces. So let's go to mesh, smooth. And depending on the type of your text, we might need to change the method of smoothing here from exponential to linear to make sure we keep the topology a little bit better and smoother around the edges. So there we go. We've got our text and it's smooth and they're all in triangles. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select a bunch of edges that we want and we're going to detach them. So essentially when we run the NCLOS simulation, all the detached edges are going to part from each other and they're going to create a little tearing effect, and we're going to have the forces take them away. So let's select our edges. Now essentially if we were to select every one of them and detach them, they'll all just be little triangles, and this will be really fast to solve. But what we're going to do is we're going to paint the edges that we want to separate, and that'll just give us a bit more of an interesting look. We can kind of get away with the look of a tearing cloth, but it's going to solve a lot quicker. So let's go into our edges, and now let's click on our paint tool here. And if we hold B, let's just make sure we have our paint tool as big or as little as we want. So essentially I'm just going to go in and let's start painting what we want to tear. So I'm just going to go in really quickly, and essentially everything that we're painting is going to fall apart. And you can see how fast this really is, but if you wanted, you could really draw some specific tears, and this makes for a really directable effect. So now that we have our selected edges, let's go to Edit Mesh and Detach. And this will just take a couple minutes. Alright, so now let's go and let's just view our edges here. And the way we can do this is to go to Display, Polygons, and Border Edges. And here we can see what we've painted here. And you can see the actual edges of the geometry. So if they're a bit small, let's go back down and we can adjust the width. So edge width, and we can bring this up, and now we can really see the edges of the geometry here. So I'm going to go down and turn that off now. Alright, so now we can just go in and let's create an end cloth. So let's go to the Effects tab, and let's click on End Cloth, Create End Cloth. So also in the nucleus of our end cloth, I'm going to use the ground plane. So let's select Use Plane, and I'm just going to put a friction of about 0.5 and a stickiness of about 0.3. I want it to have a little bit of a stickiness, but enough friction that it's not going to be like glass and slide away. So now if we were just to, say, boost up the wind speed, the wind noise, we can have a look really quick at our simulation and where it's going to tear. And you can see for what it is, it's fairly quick to simulate, and we can see all the shattering going on here. So eventually we're going to break this up, direct it a bit more with some forces, but you can see how quick this is to set up, and it already is looking really great. So also if we go into our end cloth, before we get into properties, let's just go into collisions, and if we turn off self collide, this is now going to be really, really fast. And depending on what you're trying to achieve, for the purpose of this tutorial, we're not going to use self collide. And you can see that's already quite a bit faster. So just by adjusting some wind, we could blow this away right now, and essentially we'd be done if we cashed it out. So in the next clip, we're going to go in and we're just going to fine tune some of the cloth settings, and we're going to add some forces, and we're going to kind of direct how we want to blow this apart.